tonight's meeting to order for the Norfolk School Committee for Wednesday, December 15th. The current time is 7:03 p.m. As we start out every meeting, we read the mission statement, which is the Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. Roll call, please.
Sarah Ward,
Shannon Meneses.
Jennifer Wynn,
Medora Champagne.
Thomas Doyle.
Ingrid Alardi.
I don't believe we have any public comment. Just looking out into the audience here, so I think we're good there. Moving on to correspondence. This is sort of a traditional request we get from the Norfolk Community Federal Credit Union. They do a really nice program, and I'm sure many of us have experienced this with the H. Olive Day and Freeman Kennedy School, as far as really kind of exposing kids to finances and the world of it and everything like that. It's a really nice educational program. So basically they wanted to do that again this year. I won't read the entire letter because my glasses will steam up, but I'll hit sort of the highlights of it. So it's a 3-week class that teaches students the ABCs of money management. They cover basic monetary concepts, including how to open a savings account, different types of financial institutions, the origin of money, and budgeting skills. Each child attending class receives $10 in play money, which we turn into real money by depositing in one of their new or existing credit union savings accounts. The highlight of the HOD program is the shopping experience in our store. Each week the students are given 4 quarters and they have to make a choice to spend, save, or share their money. Their choices are purchase an item at the store, save their money to purchase a more expensive item, at the last class, or take their money home and share their money with the animal shelter. Challenge the Freeman Kennedy students face is making a budget. They're given a budget worksheet, tokens to put into different budget categories such as school lunch, clothing, entertainment, charitable contributions, and emergencies. They quickly identify the importance of needs versus wants, and the budget is not carved in stone. They have to make budget adjustments based on unforeseen events. So it's a really outstanding program that sort of gives them a precursor to what life is going to be for them, so it's really nice to see for that. So they are going to do that again this year. Great to see that, and it's a fantastic program that I know the kids have really enjoyed over the years, so very happy to see them do that again. I don't know if anyone has any additional comment on that. Seeing none, we will move on. All right, so my portion of the evening. Quick discussion regarding the calendar. Sarah, I guess you probably knew some of this, but so backstories, King Philip had opted very recently, I think perhaps as soon as last week, right?
12/6.
Okay. To
that was last week.
make the 23rd of December half day. Very nice idea. The problem we ran into is just that's something logistically we just couldn't get to work out. It's a lot of moving parts to put together at that period of time. So it's something that we wouldn't be able to do, and I believe the Rentham, I know, was not doing it either, and I don't believe Plainville was, if I'm correct.
No, I think what KP reported, and Sarah, I think you could probably share from the meeting, was that they have traditionally struggled with low attendance on that day.
Correct.
And staffing shortages and challenges. And so they voted to make that a half day. We were actually not notified of that until this Monday. I had questions from a couple of parents whether we might consider aligning with KP calendar. But at the elementary level, whereas KP can close early, students are old enough to go home and be home alone. At the elementary level, our parents would have to coordinate, especially parents that are in families with 2 working parents or single parents who would have to juggle and arrange for childcare for their children. A week's notice really isn't sufficient.
Agreed.
Especially at this time of year where a lot of people are taking vacation days. It's really hard for families. So Rentham and Plainville felt the same way, that while we appreciate the thought behind it, it's just not safe or physically possible for us to make a change to the calendar. It would have to be done with the school committee at tonight's meeting, which means the earliest we could notify people would be tomorrow, which is just a week away. So it's not something that we would be able to align or recommend to do at this time.
Yeah, so the overall point is logistically just not possible for us, unfortunately. Great idea, but just unfortunately just couldn't work out. that's pretty much it on that, so. And I think that is, unless anyone has any further questions or comments on that portion, then we will move on to Ingrid.
Okay. So the first item on the agenda under my report today is to share with the committee. At our last meeting, you did my evaluation for the last school year. So I am proposing new goals for this evaluation cycle for the 21-22 school year. As you are aware from the state requirements, I have to propose a professional practice goal, 2 district improvement goals, and a student learning goal. Traditionally, the student learning goal has to be a gap narrowing goal, identifying areas where specific students are underperforming or where we're not seeing equitable outcomes. This year, I chose to focus really more on helping students recover from unfinished learning resulting from the pandemic. So the first goal that I'm proposing, we have, as most districts across the Commonwealth have really struggled with some significant staffing shortages in critical positions. We have really struggled to fill some of our special education positions. Speech and language is traditionally difficult to fill. We have difficulty filling some of our paraprofessional support positions. Also, food service we just finally have it staffed, and we're in December. So it's been really a struggle to fill positions in both our building cafeterias. And one of the biggest areas that we've really struggled with is substitute teaching positions. Now, that situation got worse as the pandemic came. Fewer people were considering or interested in substituting in schools. I know last year you recall that the committee voted to increase the daily pay rate for substitutes to be more competitive. We definitely have one of the higher pay rates in the region. We have tried out a lot of different strategies for recruitment, and we're still struggling in that area. So I think those are areas that I really need to focus on, trying to build our substitute pool. And I think we also need to look at ways to support people and create a pipeline to induct people into more critical positions in our district. So will be working with our HR director and our director of diversity, equity, and inclusion on this goal. We're looking at trying to expand the partnerships we have with local universities that offer licensure programs in those fields. We are also looking at ways to incentivize people to come to Norfolk and substitute rather than spreading themselves among multiple districts. We're looking at a few different models that we might be able to consider for that. We're also evaluating our recruiting materials and the sites that we're recruiting on for efficacy, how many candidates apply, how many we actually hire, and we're working with our director of diversity to explore some other alternate sites where we might be able to recruit a more diverse group of candidates. So that would be my first professional practice goal. Again, under evidence of goal attainment, I would provide a report to the school committee on our copies of our updated recruiting materials, list of the advertising and sites that we are accessing, and a recruitment plan to address those critical shortage needs. Any questions on that proposed goal?
Ingrid, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you find that you're losing candidates, or it's more that you just can't get them in?
So in terms of
People are leaving.
substitute teaching positions, no, it's hard to just get anybody to come in. What we do find is that because substitute teaching as a smaller district, we don't need people every day. Sometimes substitutes have their name in multiple districts. And then if they get called more frequently from one district, then sometimes we might lose candidates. But that's the one area that I would say is a little bit more fluid, but it's more getting people to onboard. The speech and language, the special education, behavioral therapeutic programs, and specific RBT-trained paraprofessionals that support our autism program, there's just a serious shortage of candidates for those positions across the state. And that's where I think leveraging some university partnerships that have licensure programs in those areas and trying to build a pipeline might be a strategy that could support us and be more sustainable than what we're doing right now.
I was thinking more ESPs. Do you find that they leave?
No, what's happened recently for us is that we have hired some of our substitutes into ESP positions. Most of our paraprofessional support staff stay here. We have a very high retention rate.
That's
We have lost a handful to people who have moved or left the area, but we don't lose a lot of our paraprofessional staff. And we did make adjustments last spring to the paraprofessional
Good.
salary
Yes.
scale as well.
That's good.
But it's more substitutes that we will see
Yeah.
fluctuate.
And you're competing with other
And
districts.
our own fault, sometimes we hire them to permanent positions and then we have fewer people on the sub list too, so.
Thank you.
Sure. The second goal for district improvement goals, I have two to propose. As we had talked about when we hired the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, one of the goals I have for our district for this year is to conduct a comprehensive equity audit of all of our curriculum, programs, and practices. And that is not just along lines of race, but also gender, students that might have various abilities, religious, to make sure that we are as thoughtful as possible about our curriculum, that our curriculum is inclusive, and that we are identifying areas where there might be biases in programs or practices that are disadvantaging certain populations of students. So the goal is to complete an equity audit. We have a standing equity committee that has representatives from both schools, teachers, adjustment counselors, a technology staff member. So it's a pretty big committee, and we're working on preparing to launch that audit. We have worked to define what a vision for the future would look like. What do we think it would look like if we met our goals and had a fully safe, inclusive, and welcoming community that was respectful of various cultures and differences. And we have identified metrics that will help us evaluate where we are in meeting that end goal. We expect we'll be sending out a survey to all of our staff members and to families around their experiences in January. We will be looking at student achievement data. We will be looking at discipline data. We will be doing walkthroughs of buildings and evaluating our libraries and other collections to make sure that they're representative and that they're free from bias. The end goal of that, I will be providing a report with the Equity Committee to the school committee of our findings, a summary of all the survey data collected, and a summary of the disaggregated student achievement data. From there, the committee will turn its findings and recommendations over to the Strategic Planning Committee, and we will be looking at goals and action steps through the Strategic Planning Committee. Any questions about the equity audit goal?
I'm just assuming that part of the action plan would be for staff training.
Yeah, it will depend on the feedback that we get from the staff survey and what people are looking for support. But yes, anytime we develop action steps, we want to make sure that we're supporting all of our staff. So there would be a training component.
So what would the, I see that here it's indicating that it'll be presented to this committee by October of
I'm
next
not
year.
on the strategic plan
I'm
goal
sorry.
yet.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Nope.
Stop reading ahead.
I didn't see where it changed.
I saw it too.
Okay, I'm sorry. So then I guess my question is, what's the time frame?
So the equity committee is.
Because I was confused.
Yep, good question. The equity committee, we started in September. We've already had several meetings. The work's well underway. We expect the surveys to go out in January. Through February, March, and early part of April, we'll be doing all the other data analysis in terms of student achievement data, our culture building walkthroughs, all of those things. And I would expect by May we'd be ready with a report.
Okay. And these are 2-year goals, correct?
These are 2-year goals.
These are 2-year goals.
Yeah.
This is your
And the
first.
next goal for that, if you can see, I think number 10 and 11 are to develop the action plans
Yeah.
and monitor their progress and report out in year 2. The third goal that I have, we are at the end of our current strategic plan, and that expired amidst the pandemic. And so we are at a time where we need to reevaluate our progress and conduct a new strategic plan audit and develop a new plan, a long-term strategic goals plan. That timeline for that, I would like to complete the equity audit first, and then in the spring of this year, put together a strategic planning committee. When we've done that in the past, that has staff representatives, it has parent representatives, community members, members of the school committee. We do a comprehensive audit of all of our district data. That's usually parent engagement surveys. It's looking at our financial history and data, looking at our climate survey data, looking at our feedback from parents around different programs that we run, and identifying our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's a pretty classic tool, a SWOT analysis, that would help us prioritize goals for the next 3 to 5 years for the district, and those goals will come to the committee to vote and approve, and then we'll develop the action steps and action plans for each goal.
So this obviously couldn't be done at the same time as the equity.
No, we need to do
It's
the
a lot of-
equity audit first. And, you know, this has been a really challenging year. Teachers are working really, really hard. There's a lot going on, and I don't want to put more on the plate. So I really want to finish the equity work and then develop a new strategic planning committee late spring, early summer as we head into next year. So the timeline on that is we'll start the data collection over the summer. We will be prepared to present preliminary goals to the committee in October, and then hopefully we'll work on developing the action plans and timelines for that and have that next.
This is really critical considering things are going to be, we're going to see how things shake out with
Absolutely.
learning and social, emotional.
Yep.
And so.
Well, I think it's prudent to give it more of an extended timeline too, because we're still
We're still
we're
assessing.
still in crisis management mode
Yeah,
right now. I don't
absolutely.
think it's appropriate to like
And
set a strategic
that's going
goal
to drive
based
our
upon the
goals,
current
like where are
environment.
we in the spring, and what are teachers,
I
you know,
know.
teachers seeing in the classroom, and what are our critical needs that we need to address, so.
I know. I just
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, no,
And I
absolutely.
live it every day. I'm like, I know what we need to do.
It takes a lot of time. The last is the student learning goal, and again, as I shared with the committee, rather than writing a gap narrowing goal, which is typically what the state requires, I would like to, since we're in an unusual situation, really focus on addressing the area that we saw, as you saw in the MCAS presentation last time. The area that was most impacted in terms of unfinished learning for students was mathematics. And we saw that both in the MCAS and in our end of year math benchmark data. So I would really like to focus on supporting academic growth in mathematics for our students and in recovering unfinished learning. Some of the things that I've already started in that area, we work to secure some outside grant funding through the ESSER grant to hire an additional math teacher at the H. Olive Day and an additional paraprofessional math interventionist at the Freeman Kennedy. I'd like to continue to try to secure that grant funding to continue those positions. And we'd also like to expand and hire another interventionist up at the Freeman Kennedy. So I'm going to be pursuing some grant funding for that. We are also going to pursue a new state grant that has recently come out to offer grant funding to offer a math camp during February and April vacation. We're looking to possibly partner with Rentham and Plainville on that, depending on how many staff members might be interested in teaching. We have some that might, and we'll try to coordinate that with the other two districts if we can secure that grant to offer that enrichment program. We also would like to run another summer acceleration academy, so we're pursuing another grant, a source of grant funding for that. We had started some work pre-pandemic with our curriculum director and our special education director and several of our special education staff members in looking at additional resources to support math instructions for students that might have math-related learning disabilities. Some of our materials need to be brought to be more current, and teachers are looking for some additional tools to address some of the unfinished learning. So we'll be looking at that. And we're also going to be looking at potential technology tools, supplementary programs that could reinforce some core math skills. I know that we've heard for a while that not everybody loves reflex math, especially at the upper grade levels. So we want to look to see what's new and what's out there. There's a lot, I know Shannon probably knows better than any of us, but a lot of vendors are coming out with additional materials to supplement for at-home practice or skill reinforcement. So we want to look and vet some new programs and tools that we could make available. Any questions on the proposed goals? Or is there anything that you feel I should address that I haven't?
I have two questions, and they're not, I don't feel you should address anything that you haven't mentioned. But my one question was, as we're tracking the benchmarking for the learning loss in math, I mean, students, I know it's one measure of success, but it's the most tangible group data metric is the MCAS. But we won't see those results until
So we
November?
don't-
Is
yeah.
that when the district gets that feedback? So they'll sit for the test and then we still won't know.
Right. So
What level?
MCAS, we don't get immediate results. We actually really measure progress more by our own district benchmarks. So
Okay.
we have a beginning of year benchmark that we gave to all of our students in the fall this year, and we compared that with the end of year assessment students took last year.
Okay.
And so we look at that. Students will be taking a mid-year district-wide math benchmark in January. So
Okay.
we'll be tracking that progress, and then they'll take the end-of-year benchmark again this year. So we can compare this year's end-of-year with last year's end-of-year and see how we're doing in terms of recovering loss. And then teachers use formative assessments regularly to track. And we're hearing, from different grade levels, this particular concept is really hard for kids, and I'm reteaching. So we will be getting teacher feedback as well.
Okay. And then just for my own edification, I know, as you said, the internal benchmarking is what drives things, but with respect to MCAS, is it being given, because it was given in a unusual way is it being given kind of
So-
normally this year so that?
As of right now, the intent is that we will return to the typical MCAS testing schedule and the typical exam. And they do take
Okay.
that in the spring, and we typically get the preliminary results in August, and they're not
Okay.
available to parents usually until October. So that is the current plan, as long as there's not a significant change in conditions
Got it.
statewide.
Okay.
Okay.
It was different last year.
Great.
Yeah, it was an abbreviated test, right?
Yeah, it was,
okay,
they only
all
took
right.
one section of each of the tests. So if nobody has questions, we need a vote from the committee to approve the proposed goals for the 21-22 school year.
I move to approve the proposed goals for the 2021. 2021, 20, I was reading ahead, I didn't read the first one.
Not like Medora.
I move to approve the proposed goals outlined in Exhibit 2.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have Matt Hafner here tonight, who is going to give an update on our facilities, the status of our facilities as we head into budget season. Matt's worked really hard with the town on the Green Community Grant and has done a really great job of creating internal savings with some of the changes that were made to lighting and other systems in the district. So I wanted him to update the committee, and he can talk a little bit about what to expect in the facilities budget. So Matt, you can actually grab a chair and come sit right next to Barry, and maybe you guys can switch spots and you can update the committee. There you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Matt.
Hello.
Long time. So yeah, I just want to give a couple of updates of some of the, I'm not going to give you a full assessment because we'd be here for a while, but some of the highlights of working with the Energy Committee and the state to get some grant funding, and we've been making some leaps and bounds, replacing some systems. A lot of this all started for the leaps and bounds is the new roof and the insulation that we added has made a massive difference in the comfort and the consumption of fuel in that building. But the issue is it's been really hard to trend to anything because we were kind of closed for a bit, then we run a lot more outside air, so I can't really quantify savings yet because it hasn't been normal since we've put a roof on. But what I can tell is it's much more comfortable and my electric consumption's gone down. So it's definitely making a difference. Some of the other major drivers that have made some great differences, it's mostly at the Olive Day because it's the older building and needs upgrades. We did a complete interior retro of all the lighting units using all green community funding of the main building. We changed out the bathroom exhaust fans and the bathroom fixtures as well. That was about $100,000 worth of work for free. It's been made a large improvement over at the Olive Day as well because the rooms are brighter and it's definitely using less electricity. I'm seeing that because I actually finally, for the first time ever, got to take some on our town energy bills. We have the solar field and we take credits and we get to apply the credits to different accounts, and it's called a Schedule Z, and so we have about 30 accounts. I was finally, for the first time ever, able to take money off this Olive Day school and put it towards another facility that was not doing it because we're finally seeing that. Again, it's hard to trend because nothing's been normal, But
And Matt, those were all new LED fixtures you put in. all the
everything's
classrooms.
LED, so there's no more ballast. So the best part about that is not only is it energy savings, but I don't need to call an electrician every time a bulb goes out. Because with the, if it's basically like a lamp at home where you unscrew it and you put another one in at this point, where right now, like these lights, we've had them out for problems. It took forever to get parts for them, and just the parts alone are $3,500, and it's going to take several days of changing out and stuff. So there's a huge savings because they last longer and they're easier to replace. So there's lots of benefits above energy savings, time and electrical repairs. We also put occupancy sensors in the building, in the bathroom, so a lot of times you come in, they turn on, and they turn off a few minutes later, which is a big savings, because a lot of times if you turn a bathroom light on, especially at a public building, it stays on. So that's trimming it down. We've also, sorry, I can't read my mic, sorry. We did a project through capital funding from the town last year. We replaced all the pumps at the building, all the circulator pumps, and I went way over budget on the pumps, but I was able to work with Eversource in order to put a way better pump in and got rebates. So we've self-performed the installation, and we got these pumps that are computerized now, and we're not using that feature yet, but I'll tell how this is going to save us a lot of money, hopefully this coming year. We also did
Matt, for the general public, can you explain what a circulator pump?
circulator pump is what pushes the water, hot water for the heating system throughout the building to provide the heat. It transfers the water. The pumps that were there were original and they were in poor shape. They can be rebuilt, which they had all been rebuilt multiple times, but over years they start to rot in the casting. So it was a suggestion as a capital request, and that was one of the projects that were funded. And we also had new septic pumps funded, but those really aren't a major energy draws. But the pumps we put in are like the latest technology, and they're really cool. And we're not using their capacity yet, because that's the second part of the job, which is we're working on a grant right now. We're waiting for funding, but I'll talk about that as well. Both schools we put in at the coolers. It's called Cool-Trol system on the walk-in coolers and walk-in freezers. It trims the energy usage on the build for the walk-in freezers, because instead of having everything on mechanical timers and just turning on as it mechanically, now it has sensors and it tells it when it needs it. We also changed the motors on the evaporators, which use basically it slows them up and speeds them. Speed control motors, and it's all electronic in it. By having it doing that, it saves a lot of money in electricity. And we also have the ability now, if we have a problem with the units, I get an alert, which is really nice because we have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of food, and if something happens, it's nice to know. So we've been doing that. So what we've been actively working on with the Energy Committee, I spent a lot of time with these guys, and they're good guys. So this year we want to put all the money in the holiday again. So the addition was excluded from the project scope when we did all the LED lighting, and also like the hallways, putting in occupancy sensors in the hallways too, which we ran out of. There's thresholds for AUR grant, and also what you could spend without putting out to public procurement. So right now the plan is to completely redo the addition lights and the bathroom exhaust over there. Also put in occupancy sensors throughout the school, so in the hallway at nighttime, like they're on, now they can trim them way down, so everything's like a step to save money. And we're also going to redo the exterior pole lights. Now, as much as I'd love to redo the posts, those don't, it's a competitive grant, and so the posts, and some of them are crooked and whatnot, those do not add value, and if I were to put it in, they said I would never get the grant. So we're gonna basically take the whole fixture off and put new fixtures on, and also make them with smart technology so we can adjust the light that they produce. So in the middle of the night, we can turn them way down and still have them on. So it's all about just trimming the wattage being consumed. So that's a big project. We're estimating that to be valued at $88,000.
Matt, I'm sorry, could I ask a question about that? I'm just curious. Could they ever use solar for that? The only reason why I ask is I wonder if we should keep the lights on, the exterior lights on outside just for for
Well, yes,
safety.
so we would keep them on.
Yeah.
But then we would trim them down in
But
the middle of
keep
the
'em,
night.
like, very
So
low?
yes, so the
Like,
building lights.
reduce it by 30% so that it's not.
I'm just saying so that you could see, like, just for,
So what I'm,
nobody would break in or.
so the building lights
issues.
themselves are going to stay. I've replaced most of the exterior building lights when we did the roof. Those will stay full power, so if somebody tries to get in the building, we have light on so the cameras can see
Okay.
them fine.
Okay, that's what I was
So
thinking, like, can you see?
this is more of the parking lot lighting.
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of studies and there's so much data, and it needs to be bright when you're having functions,
yep,
but they'll still be lit. It's just not going to be at the same level lit. It'll just trim it. Yeah, it's a dimmer basically, and it's going to ramp down, but it'll also be automatic. So right now we have mechanical time clocks. These will be an app, a web-based app, so we can trim it if we don't like what's going on. So that should be a huge savings as well. What I really want is it's called BMS, Building Management System. So this building we have it, the Olive Day we have pneumatics. So technically we have a building management system over there, but it's not an efficient way to control it. So one thing I've been wanting to do is start taking over the pneumatics because it's a dead industry and everything's old over there, so it's time to start trying to replace stuff. So because we put those new pumps in that are great, that can save us a ton of money. Well, with this head-in system now, we can take the outside air temperature and we can set up all sorts of different parameters, and we can take those circulator pumps, which right now just run fat, dumb, and happy, and we can slow them down and speed them up, and that's massive energy savings, because that's probably our biggest consumption of electricity in that building is all the pumps. So with that, it should make the building more comfortable on warmer days, because right now they just sends out hot water, and it will control it, but will save a ton of money when we can put some controls on it and run the pumps. They're all digital, so it'll be a computer automated program, and so that would be the first step, because eventually we need to start taking all the classrooms and changing out the valves and the actuators, and it's going to be an ongoing process, but this gets the foot in the door and not have the town spend any money on it. This is a grant. And at first they weren't interested in it until we talked about the other project. So they basically said that the town's paying half of the cost because we already did the pumps, and they gave us a value for that. So that project's valued at $59,000. Again, we're not paying for it. It's a competitive grant, so we feel pretty good about it. And the last thing we're doing this year, hopefully, weatherization at the Olive Day. So all the doors, changing out the sweeps, going through and doing an assessment from replacing pipe insulation from various repairs, or change out water heaters, and going through and trying to make sure that there's less air infiltration. So those are our three big projects we're trying to get for this year's funding from the state. We've been told we have good return on investments on it, so it looks good for us. So should hopefully find out the end of January. They're forecasting that they're going to allocate the funds. So that's the plan. So that's some of the fun stuff that we've been doing. I live a boring life.
I think it's cool. I think those pumps sound cool.
So that was the good, the bad. So this year, everything's going crazy for price-wise. I'm sure everybody's
Matt,
aware of it.
If you don't mind me asking, and remind me, I know, I think you told me this before. You mentioned repeatedly their electric usage, specifically in HOD. Do we have a contracted rate with them, or are we just subject to the whims of the electrical market, which is going nuts right now, and because that obviously has budgetary impacts?
Yes, we do. We have an interesting setup too because of the solar field. We buy the credits from that at a very low rate, and we apply the credits at a full rate.
Right.
On top of that is because we don't make enough to pay for all the electricity in the town. I did a 5-year, or the town, Blythe and I and the selectmen approved it, is I did a 5-year energy lock at 9.3 somewhere right around there per kilowatt. So nobody can change your distribution fees or any of that stuff, but you can do your actual power purchase.
Right, that's the only thing.
So we have that locked in at a really great rate, and we did that last winter, and a couple months after that, they started going crazy, so we locked in at a...
inflation hedge you did there, nice work.
Yeah, so we're good for 5 years on that. I did hear you on a previous school committee meeting. This building is natural gas. That was one thing I remember hearing on a school committee
Yes,
meeting.
The other one's oil, right?
Oil,
The other
yeah.
school is oil, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one is,
So
that I do
because
not...
I know we have an oil contract with HOD, right?
We do. We use a state ComBuys account. It's I don't know the number on it. So we have at the Olive Day, I can buy oil in 2 rates. I can buy a track above 8,000 gallons and under 8,000 gallons. And if I do it 8,000, it's a full semi-truck oil tanker, and the rate's several cents cheaper.
Got it.
Because they're not making multiple stops. But sometimes that's not practical. Last year, there's a few times that I like to do full tractor trailer loads, but obviously the end of the year, I like to leave the tank full. So that won't be depending on how the heating season works, but the beautiful part about having a 12,000 gallon underground tank is you can wait and buy in bulk, but we have accounts both ways, so I can do it it's called less than truckload. And then, so we do have accounts with that. The natural gas, we do not. I had looked into it multiple times, and we're such a small consumer in the scheme of things that it wasn't attractive. Everybody says, oh, we could save you a fortune, and then when you start going down showing utility bills, it hasn't been something. So that's where we sit with those.
Okay.
So,
Actually, this is more of a comment. You mentioned a couple times, and if I heard you correctly, I think you said it also helped with the outside lights, but it's nice to hear a couple years after the fact that this roof project, which obviously the time generated some questions, has certainly borne out as far as being the wise investment we thought it was going to be. Beyond it being under budget, but the fact that it's actually done everything that's been promised.
And
Sorry.
during-
And the Green Communities grant, which
Right.
was at the same meeting where we did the roof, we talked about the Green Communities, and
Thank
the
you.
town agreed to incorporate schools' utility expenditures
Yep.
into their umbrella. So it was actually, everybody worked
This is a win-win.
together.
At least-
It was, high five.
Another nice little note about the insulation on the roof is we're in there all summer. Summer's the busiest time of year for my guys, and having insulation, it makes it manageable in that building, because think
They
about
pass
it.
out a lot less.
A little bit, yeah. I had to buy less 5 gallons of water for them to drink in the hallways. It's really made a nice difference, and then, like this past year, we held summer programs there, which is a nice feature. We were able to add a couple of ACs, but they're a window unit AC, which is not an efficient way to do it, but that's what we do it over there. It can handle a classroom now, where before they would run and never shut off. Now they actually cycle a little bit, which is definitely making a nice impact. So, and another nice thing is I don't get phone calls all the time about leaks, and we haven't had it's been amazing.
You
Now
haven't
this
had to
building's
rip up
another story.
carpet or
We actually I got a bunch of
Everybody
seats.
loves the roof.
Yeah.
Right.
At the
and
end of
it's
it,
safe.
at the end of the project, I asked them to leave me ceiling tiles, because we used to go through them nonstop, and so they did. And now I have all these ceiling tiles that are just in the way now, because we have everything else, because we haven't been using any, which is absolutely phenomenal for us. So,
And we replace the ceiling tiles if you have leaks, because they stain and we
Yes.
haven't had to. And I
So-
think, Matt,
We
the other
sell
thing you
those
mentioned that I
aftermarket?
just wanted to highlight for the committee is that it was really critical that we had the roof project complete, especially for the pandemic, because as Matt said, for health and safety, we have had to increase the amount of external air that we're bringing in.
Yep.
And for parts of the year, we were running 100% outside air. During the winter, it's closer to 40 to 50, but we're bringing in a lot of cold air, and those boilers would have been running constantly if we had the kind of heat loss. I remember sharing with you guys the heat loss maps
Right.
that we had done. We were losing so much heat through the roof soffits. that this has made a dramatic difference, and it could have really impacted the budget this year if we hadn't had that done,
Yeah,
or
essentially
our ability to
convertible.
bring in as much outside air as we are.
It's an open air school.
It basically was an open-air school, it's a convertible.
That stays dry inside.
Yeah, well, sometimes, yeah, but yeah, now it does.
No,
Permanently.
it's,
Now it's a
that's-
hard top.
it's-
Yeah, now we have a full hardtop, there it is.
It's, now this building has, we've been chasing leaks nonstop in this building, unfortunately, but that's kind of,
No more roofs. Sorry.
yes.
Store's closed.
No, we've spent several $1,000s this year, probably close to 10, unfortunately, just over the cafeteria, because we just, the standing seam metal roof, just, we're finding that the sealant that they put in, which we chased a few years ago between the brick
Yeah.
capstones, well, that sealant's underneath the capstones, which, that's failing, because we thought it was a UV thing, but now that's all failing, and then where they sealed all the metal seams together, that's also failing, so we're chasing a lot of, unfortunately, it's mostly the cafeteria, which we finally have dry, and the gym, which we have dry, and we had a couple classrooms, it's all, but right at this point, we're dry in the school, and it's unfortunate, because when we go up to the work, the more we're on there walking and wear and tear, it's just, it's a vicious cycle, but now the yellow day is beautiful, so it's been great. All right, so the bad, custodial supplies are going crazy. I've been talking to a couple of vendors, and I'm being told I should budget between 8 to 12% higher.
I'm sorry, what is going crazy? I didn't catch that.
Custodial supplies, paper products,
Sorry, thank you.
petroleum products, wax, floor wax and stuff, everything's going crazy. And they're very hard to get, long lead times, all of our parts are going up. So I'm asking significantly more in the custodial lines, because just to keep a level service, and this is hoping that the pandemic goes away, because if we're still dealing with this, it's gonna be a bit of another talk. But figuring that if things are going back to how it used to be with the, without having to have the amount of PPE and whatnot. So I want you guys to be very aware of that. So I'm basically asking about 10% more on my lines. One thing we've been having fun with this year is copier paper. A lot of it comes from China. So our contract with Staples, not Staples,
Jason.
W.B. Mason, they've dropped the ball. They can't get it because it's on ships coming from China. So we've been spending more money to get it from Staples, who's also a state vendor, but we don't get the same pricing from it. So I imagine a lot of the school supplies are also unfortunately going up, because very difficult, because the copier paper seems like it'd be pretty simple, and it isn't. Obviously the fuel prices are rising. That comes out of the town budget, but just everything's rising, and it's scary. Again, with the building supplies, just trying to get fixtures and lights. We ordered repair parts for these at the beginning of school year. They finally came in. Now we're just trying to coordinate we're gonna be doing it over the Christmas vacation, getting an electrician in here to start changing these parts out. But just so you have an idea, just to fix the out ones, it's $3,500 in parts. And it took months to get the parts, and then I had to have an electrician go up on lifts and redo everything. So everything, it's hard, and trying to get people to come in and work is also a problem. I unfortunately lost a great employee, our HVAC guy. He went to another school district, and I've had an application several different places for over 4 weeks without a single application. And I've even reached out to Tri-County trying to see if we could use some of their students. Just not having any luck at all. So Matt Malnarch and myself, and we've been doing a lot of HVAC work. And this is the first time I've worn nice clothes in a while, because I've been going through
Changing filters.
Yeah, so we've been trying to multitask,
And that
so-
HVAC position was the one that we added just a couple of years ago. It was a shared position between the schools and the town to
Right.
support maintenance of our heating and cooling systems. And as Matt said, the employee we had left about a month ago. We've been advertising and struggling to secure a new candidate, but we're hopeful that we will in January, because that position generated significant savings for both the town and the school by being able to address internal
Sure.
repairs in a much more timely way.
So that's been a big hamper in our department, because these schools especially take a lot of love and care on everything. And being in the pandemic and just, we were just talking about employees, it's almost impossible to compete right now because in the private industry, they're pretty much paying double what I can offer. And even though this is a wonderful position to have and it's secure, it's very difficult.
So Matt, I'm just curious, if you and your men can't, or men and women, if you have
Employees.
if your employees can't fix it,
Sure.
are you able to contract out at least with?
Sure.
I know it's a
So-
lot of money, but are you able to?
So what I've been
get
doing,
that?
luckily it's only been a little over a month, but there's a great mechanical contractor in town actually, who I've been using, and I also have, I use a state vendor for the boiler repairs. But problem with them even is they're short-staffed. So I called the other day because we were having a smell. We have smells in this building. And do you have heat? Yes, we have another boiler. Well, we have a lot of customers about heat and we can't get there. So that's what I'm up against a lot.
Yeah.
So we are doing our absolute best to overcome. Yesterday I spent my day down in the basement in the library rebuilding circulator pumps again, trying to keep up with this. It's been difficult. So we're hoping to find somebody and bring them up to speed, and hoping to find. Hopefully, I was really wanting somebody with a lot of experience, but at this point I want to get. I'm fine with doing a lower experience and just doing a lot of training, and hopefully they stick around. But we're keeping an eye on everything. Matt Malnrich is very proficient on all the automated controls, and between my experience before Norfolk, we're able to keep everything going for the most part. So, and we are relying on contractors, which we will be doing a talent transfer from salary line to HVAC line in the spring. So.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody have questions? As Matt said, I think Keith's done a fantastic job working with the town and the Green School, the Green communities in order to generate a lot of savings. We've seen some really positive things in terms of energy usage at the $8 a day, electrical usage. And again, we will see an increase in the custodial supply lines and in our paper products in the budget proposal for next year due to supply chain issues that have really driven up the cost of those two items. Any questions for Matt?
I do have a quick question, and this may be more on the budget side. Matt, it was really helpful to hear all that. When we obviously see when things increase, and we see, I don't want to say the negative, but the more challenging things that happen with the budget, how is it reflected with these savings? Like, I know we talked about it verbally tonight, but how is it reflected in the public in the future, all these savings, so that it sort of helps and alleviates when there are some challenges that we come up against?
Well, that's where it gets interesting for me, at least, because a lot of the savings are coming out of the town budget. So if my lines go down, I have to justify. So it's a collaboration with Ingrid and Blythe, and explaining, it's a lot of communication where we're seeing it and how we need to reapply it. And we've done this, in the past, for tough budget years and trying to move. And so the savings will hopefully be reallocated to
Offset other new
offset it,
costs.
but
Other things.
it's just, that's where she's awesome at this stuff, and he's going to become awesome if he's not already. I don't know him well enough yet, but lots of communication with the town, and that's pretty much how it is. It's how it's been working, and it seems to work pretty good.
Pretty well. Okay, it's amazing to hear the efficiencies that you've made and the savings that you've had, and I just want to make sure that people are aware of that, and it does helpful to hear tonight, but make sure that doesn't.
And it will help. We did transition some of the energy accounts in budget to the town side. So some of those credits and the savings they're seeing will be savings in the town budget,
town side.
which they then can bring down what they budget in those lines and reallocate to support other department
Right,
budgets,
okay.
police, fire, other things like that. So
That's
yeah.
helpful. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Welcome.
Have a good night.
Well,
All right, the last thing I have along the lines of capital projects is just an update. I asked Trish Kelly, our technology director. As you know, at the last school committee meeting, the town did vote to appropriate $125,000 for school capital projects. The capital projects that are involved in, that were approved are a replacement of our current phone system. The NEC district-wide phone system that we use in both buildings was originally released in 2007. It is beyond its end-of-life marker. It really expired in 2018, so we are way past due for an upgrade there. The current system also doesn't have the capacity to add any more extensions. It can't manage it. So the funding was approved, and the tech team has been working with our vendor, Valley Communications. They're out of Chicopee, Mass. They're also on the state contract to look at what would be involved in migrating to the new NEC 9100 system. And so they are in the process of doing that. They're also vetting with many other districts that have adopted this new system to check references with Valley and to make sure the systems are working the way they would like to see them operate. They've gotten pricing. Once all of that is approved and they've vetted the system, we will begin the process of purchasing the new phone lines, migrating our system to the new system, and providing training for staff and users. So they are tackling that part of the capital project first. I expect in early January, we'll be starting that rollover. And then the next project that was funded through the town is a replacement of all of our security cameras and equipment to upgrade to, many of them here at the Freeman Kennedy are over 10 years old, to bring them current and to allow them to be connected to one management system. So Trish will be providing regular updates to the committee on the status of those two projects, but at this time it was just approved at the November town meeting, so they are just beginning the work on the phone system. Any questions?
Yeah, actually I do have one. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm looking, so it's 125,000 for essentially what I assume is a hardwired, your traditional phones.
So the 125,000 is for all three capital projects. The phone system, I believe, is about 80,000 of that, and then
Okay.
there's the security
portion
camera
is the
upgrade,
security.
and then there's also an they're relocating the HOD server room.
Okay.
And they have to run some new Cat 5 wire, I believe, but I'd have
Okay.
to double check
But
the.
well, let's just say 80,000 for the sake of argument is the
Yep.
cost of the phone. I guess I'm curious, has any school system gone away from sort of the traditional phone system? I understand you need some hard lines for security and whatnot.
This is the digital system, so
Fully
it's,
digital, but there's
it's
no-
both. It has some wired phones, and
Okay.
then the rest are digital connections. Yeah.
That's actually a pretty good price then, if you're getting that type of thing. For
Yeah.
80,000, I just.
Because they're on the state vendor contract, we get a lower rate. But yes, it is I can't remember the name of those systems, but it is a digital system.
Because I mean, just a comparison, we did that in my office in 2019, which was a complete waste in retrospect, but, and it was $30-some-odd thousand for
Yeah.
a 30 phone system,
Yep.
this is an infinitely larger project, and that's
Probably
actually a
triple
very, very
that.
good price.
Yeah, they have worked really closely with Valley Communications, and again, because they're on the state bid list, we get a lower pricing. And again, they are digital systems, and it just takes time to upgrade, purchase, install, migrate, and then do the training.
And it's just a security system, the cameras here that need.
Both. They're
I
upgrading.
thought he might have said the HOD had been done. Did I
We
misunderstand?
have replaced some of the cameras. The new cameras
Okay.
that we installed at the entranceway are all new. There's a handful that
Got it.
HOD that need to be upgraded, and then these ones all here have to be upgraded.
Very good, thank you.
All right?
I have one other quick question. I don't know if I missed it in here. What's the projected lifespan of the new system? About the same time frame? So
I would think about 10 years, but I'd have to confirm that, Shannon. I am not sure off the top of my head.
Okay. I was just curious. It seems like a decent amount of time. I was.
I've got a 2-year-old one in my office if you want. I got a good deal for you.
All right.
$32,000.
Appreciation,
Sold.
30.
I'm in.
And the phone's yours.
Yep.
Physical phone.
And then that is all I have for tonight.
All right, moving on to King Philip.
Okay, so we met last Monday, and I'll just give you a couple highlights. We already talked about the half day that's happening on the 23rd. There's continued work being done on the dual college course options that are available. They are looking at funding options to make it low or no cost for the students. One huge thing that came about is that we're partnering with about 11 other communities to form a consortium. So we will be able to populate the courses with just high school students, so they wouldn't be mixed. So that'd be really cool. I kind of wish it was available when I was at KP. Dr. Gilson is spearheading this, and she's going to be writing the grant for all the communities as one grant. There's going to be a variety of courses. There's going to be options for getting a certificate or credits. There was a vaccination clinic, and about 200 first doses were given to 5 to 11-year-olds, and a few boosters were administered. Paul is receiving a state leadership award in March. This will be his second time getting it, and he is the only person to receive it twice in its history, I believe. So it's congratulations to Paul. With a mask update, we did have some parents with public comments about how the new waiver was affecting their students. 83% of the high school is vaccinated, so the waiver was granted, so you only need to wear a mask if you're unvaccinated at this point. As of the week before this meeting, 76.65% of the middle school was vaccinated, so they're hoping to be able to apply for a waiver after the new year, maybe. The Kyle Cares Grant recognized KP along with some other schools for things such as this suicide prevention information that KP has available on all of their student IDs now. And they were awarded a $2,500 grant, which will be used by the Active Minds group for further reaching out to students and wellness and things like that. We did approve a new job description. The assistant principal is leaving, and we are going to be filling that position with a dean of students position instead of an assistant principal. This will allow us to open up the pool of candidates because there will be no license required. Ingrid, let me know if I'm misrepresenting
No, I think that's
that.
accurate, yeah.
So this person would not be doing the teacher evaluations. The new hire would not be doing them because they're coming in halfway through the school year, and those are sort of already in motion. The school improvement plan for the middle school was approved. This was the third reading, I believe, of it, and that is available on the website if you want to review it. It's a great plan they have in place. And that was it.
Thank you very much, Sarah. All right, moving on to policy.
Hi, we reviewed the animals in school policy that we talked about 2 meetings ago, and we tightened up the language of, based on some feedback from the principals and our own feedback, and we'll be bringing it for a first reading in January. Okay. And the second thing we talked about was the OSHA vaccine mandate, and because it's still in litigation and it's kind of put on hold right now, we really, we're not doing anything really with it, but we did look at some other districts' policies on faculty, staff vaccination and testing and whatnot, and we are going to put something together that we like, just in case the OSHA mandate does go through, that we'll have something ready to be put in place. So right now we're in a holding pattern, but we're planning on, if everything shakes out and we do need to have something in place, we'll have it ready to go ASAP. Ingrid's shaking her head, so
Yep.
I got approval.
Nope, that's right.
Correct. And that is that.
Thank you, Jen. All right, so moving on, we've got a school partner renewal. It always cracks me up that we have to vote to renew the partnership with the NTA, but I guess we have to do that. Seems kind of funny, but.
Let's create some controversy.
That's right. Like the split vote, that's the fun part. All right, so we need a motion to accept our friends over the NTA for their annual partner renewal.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So much for that controversy.
Next time.
It's almost Christmas. Drama-free committee.
Extending our.
All right, and then we need to approve our minutes from the last meeting, which I believe, Jen, you were.
I was not there, so I
So,
cannot.
Sarah, you weren't here?
No,
There
I was
just
not
three of
here
us,
either.
right? Okay.
That's right.
It was a lonely meeting.
So only, so Shannon, Medora, and myself are the only ones voting on this. So do we have a motion to accept the school meeting minutes from our November 17th meeting?
So moved.
Well, you move.
In stereo. That's
So moved.
Second.
very good. Anything you guys want to talk about that? Are we all set?
We missed you guys, Terry.
Yeah, we did. We had a moment of silence.
It was awful. Inconsolable.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then next up for us is, back to a Tuesday, January 11th. Does that look okay for everybody?
Carrie, is
that
that,
far
would we
ahead?
want to switch that to the Wednesday, if possible?
If you
I
don't
like
mind.
Yep.
I have been planning on these being on Tuesdays. It's just, it's challenging with childcare because my
Okay.
husband has evening commitments.
Okay.
That said, I could probably do it one more time since that is my birthday, so I'd be fine not seeing you guys on January 11th, but
Oh, okay.
if
Great,
it's
now the
going
surprise
to
is
be.
I don't think it'll be permanent. We wanted to do that during budget season,
Okay.
so that Barry would be able to update the
So
committee on
through-
budget. So
But
probably
that'd be-
January, possibly February, because
February
the March public
February
hearing
might
is.
be tough for her though, she's got to scramble other stuff, Kevin's got stuff, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, we have been tending to try to plan our respective meeting schedules so that we are not meeting on the same nights,
night,
which is,
yeah.
for example, happening tonight.
Ah.
So my house may be on fire.
Well, if we could do it for the January meeting, and then we can look at February when we, at that time, is
So
that
we'll look
okay?
at January 12th then?
Yeah.
Just, okay, and then we'll
Thank you.
revisit to see how February could plan out.
Yeah.
And we'll do policy, subcommittee
Yep,
policy.
immediately prior.
Right before,
Okay.
And budget right
Let's
after.
put this in.
That works. 2022.
And then in February, we wouldn't be
12.
exactly a month, because that would put us close to, oh no, we would be before February break, right?
Oh,
That would be
yeah,
before
February
that.
break is late
Yep.
this year.
I know.
And it's
It's really the
2025.
January, February that we typically have budget right after, but we can always pick a different time for the budget subcommittee.
Well, and that
meeting,
makes
too.
the most sense to meet on the same
Yeah,
day,
sort of
Yeah.
good.
right?
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
fine.
that
Okay.
All right.
we can manage
and
expectations domestically, that's fine.
Lastly, we need a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Move to adjourn.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Everybody, have a nice winter break, holiday, Merry Christmas, all of you.